One. So if you're joining right now, or depending on whenever you join, this might seem strange to what you're seeing and what the title says. And let me just basically summarize it. I'm going to be reading The Great Gatsby. Storytime with Danny, Chapter 1. Now, I never done a story before, and I thought, what if this would be interesting? I like The Great Gatsby, so I don't know. I think it's a good idea. I don't know. You guys tell me if you like it or not. So I'm just gonna start. Okay, we got 3 people on the stream. Soviet, hey Soviet. Like I was saying, not gonna be playing Red Dead. No Red Dead, not today. Hey Joe, hi. Hey, what's up everybody? There's 4 people. Jesus, you guys clicked on that fast. Okay, let me just go ahead and start. Okay. The Great Gatsby. This is a novel written by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And the opening quote is, "Then wear the gold hat, if that will move her. If you can bounce high, bounce for her too. Till she cry, lover, gold-hatted, high-bouncing lover, I must have you." A quote by Thomas Park d'Invilliers. Chapter 1. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over my mind ever since. Bedtime story, yes, this is bedtime story. Go to sleep, Joe. Put this in your head, in your ears, just listen to it, and you will ascend. Whenever there's a quote, "Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone," he told me, "just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had." He didn't say any more, but we've always been unusual, communicative, in a reserved way. And I understand that he meant a great deal more than that. Story time, Danny Boomer, what are you doing? Story time. This is story time, guys. This is just, I don't know. If you like it, just sit back. I might not read the chat much because I need to look at this, so I apologize for that in advance. In consequence, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments, a habit that has opened up many curious natures to me, and also made me the victim of not a few veteran bores. The abnormal mind is quick to detect and attach itself to this quality when it appears in a normal person, and so it came about that in college I was unjustly accused of being a politician, because I was privy to the secret griefs of wild, unknown men. Most of the confidence were unsought. Frequently, I've fade sleep, preoccupation of hostile levity. When I realized by some unmistakable sign that an intimate revelation was quivering on the horizon, for the intimate revelations of young men, or at least the terms in which they express them, are usually plagiaristic and married by obvious suppressions. Reserving judgments is a matter of infinite hope, and I am still a little afraid of missing something that, if I forget it, as my father snobbishly suggested, and I snobbishly repeat the same of the fundamental decencies, is parceled out unequally at birth. And after boasting this way of my tolerance, I came to the mission that has a limit. Conducting may be founded on the hard rock or the wet marshes, but after a certain point, I don't care what it's founded on. When I came back from the East last autumn, I felt that I wanted the world to be in a uniform, and I sought of moral attention forever. I wanted no more riotous executions, with privileged glimpses into the human heart. Only Gatsby, the man who gives his name to this book, was exempt from my reaction. Gatsby, who represented everything for which I have an unaffected scorn. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him. Some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life, as he was related to one of those intricate machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away. This responsiveness had nothing to do with the flabby impersonality of which it was dignified under the name of the creative temperament. Soviet says, "I shouldn't be making an animation, but yeah, I'm listening to a story. I will stop talking to you guys can listen to the story." Okay, what animation are you making? I apologize if my voice is kind of weird. I don't normally do story time, so this is the first. So it's I'm actually having a lot of fun here. Let's see. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him. Some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life, as if he was related to one of those intricate machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away. This responsiveness had nothing to do with that flabby personality, which is dignified under the same creative temperament. It was an extraordinary gift for hope, a romantic readiness, such as I never found in any person, and which is not likely I shall ever find again. No. Gatsby turned out all right at the end. It was preyed on Gatsby. What foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams that temporarily closed out my interests in the boredom of sorrows and short-winded elations of men. My family have been prominent, well-to-do people in this middle western city for 3 generations. Let's see. Jay Lexus, what's up? Outlast is very scary. Outlast, very scary game. I don't know if I could play. It seems like I would just jump out on my seat, screeching like how you did that one time. Making animations about flags. Flags? Oh, I wonder what flag that would be. Where did I leave off? Okay. The Caraways are something of a clan, and we have a tradition that we're descended from the Dukes of Buccleuch. But the actual founder of my line was my grandfather's brother, who came here in 51. They're probably talking about 1851, if you guys don't know. Sent a substitute to the Civil War and started the wholesale hardware business that my father carries on today. I never saw this great uncle, but I'm supposed to look like him, with special references to the rather hard-boiled paintings that hangs in father's office. I graduated from New Haven in 1950. Just a quarter of a century after my father, and a little later I participated in that delayed Teutonic migration known as the Great War. I enjoyed the counter raid so thoroughly that I came back restless. Instead of being the warm center of the world, the Middle West now seemed like the ragged edge of the universe. So I decided to go east and learn the bound business. Everybody I knew was in the bound business, so I suppose they could support one more single man. All my aunts and uncles talked over as if they were choosing a prep school for me, and finally said, "Why ye yes," with very grave, hesitant faces. Father agreed to finance me for a year, and after various delays, I came east. Permanently, I thought, in the spring of 22. The practical thing was to find rooms in the city, but it was a warm session, and I had just left a country of wide lawns and friendly trees. So when a young man in the office suggested that we take a house together in a community town, it sounded like a great idea. He found the house, a weather-beaten cardboard bungalow at 80 a month, which is good, guys. That's pretty good. But at the last minute, the firm ordered him to Washington. Let's see. I'm gonna look at the chat. But of course, what is going on? Story time. What's up, Caden? What's up, Blood? Don't know. Oh, it's in the title, right? It's the Great Gatsby. Did I not write it? Hold on. let me go check if it's in the title. If it's not in the title, that's embarrassing. The Great Gatsby. That's the name of the story. This chapter 1. Hold on. Where was? And I went out to the country alone. I had a dog. At least I had him for a few days until he ran away. An old Dodge and a Finnish woman who made my bed, cooked breakfast, and muttered Finnish wisdom to herself over the electric stove. It was lonely for a day, so until one morning, some man, more recently arrived than I, stopped me on the road. "How do you get to West Egg Village?" he asked helplessly. I told him, and as I walked on, I was lonely no longer. I was a guide, a pathfinder, an original settler. He had casually conferred on me the freedom of the neighborhood, and so with the sunshine and the great bursts of leaves growing on the trees, just as things grow in fast movies, I had the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer. Blood says, I remember this in high school. Yes, yeah. This was from high school. This is the only story that I actually liked. So I was like, what about The Great Gatsby? Because that was a good story and a good movie. Both of them, I loved them. I was asleep the most of it. I know it was because how we did it though. Because how it was set up. That's what made it tiring. But I don't know. I'm not like a big book guy, but I feel like reading today. Mr. Ducks, my man is doing a story. Well, yes, I am doing a story. Mr. Ducks, if you'd like to listen. New person joined the stream. Anis for Hana. Hey, welcome. If you like the Great Gatsby, I'm currently reading chapter 1, the prologue. Very, very early. So, yeah, okay, alright. Let me, hey, Jim Manny, what's up? Alright, let me finish. Where was I? I told him, and as I walked on, I was no longer. I was a guide, a pathfinder, original settler. He had casually conferred me to the freedom of the neighborhood. And so with the sunshine and the great bursts of leaves growing on the trees, just as things grow in fast movies, I had that further conviction that life was beginning again with the summer. There was so much to read for one thing, and so much fine health to be pulled down on the young, breath-giving air. I bought a dozen volumes on banking and credit investment securities, and they stood on my shelf in red and gold like new money from the prince, promising to unfold the shiny secrets that only Linus and Morgan and Mecenas knew. And I had the high intention of reading many other books besides. I was rather illiterate in college. One year I wrote a series of very solemn and obvious editorials from the Yale News, and now I was going to bring back all such things into my life and become again the most limited of all specialists, the well-rounded man. This isn't just an epigram. Life is much more successfully looked at from a single window after all. It was a matter of chance that I should have rented a house in one of the strangest communities in North America. It was on the slender roteous land which extends itself due east of New York, and where there are, among other natural curiosities, two unusual formations of land 20 miles from the city, a pair of enormous eggs, identical in contour and separated only by Curtis Bay, just out into the most domestic body of salt water in the Western Hemisphere, the great wet Barnard of Long Island Sound. They are not perfect ovals. Like the egg in the Columbus story, they are both crushed flat at the contact end, but their physical resemblance must be a source of perpetual confusion to the gulls that fly overhead. To the winglets, a more arresting phenomenon is their dislimity in every particular, every shape and size. I lived at West Egg, the less fashionable of the two, though this is the most superficial tag to express the bizarre and not a little sinister contrast between them. My house was at the very tip-top of the egg, only 50 yards from the Sound and squeezed between two huge places that rented for $12,000 or $15,000 a season. The one on my right was a colossal affair by an standard. It was a facial imitation of some Hotel de Ville in Normandy, with a tower on one side, spanking new under a thin beard of raw ivy, and a marble swimming pool, and more than 40 acres of lawn and garden. It was Gatsby's mansion, or rather, as I didn't know Mr. Gatsby, it was a mansion inhabited by a gentleman of the name. My own house was an eyesore, but it was a small eyesore. It had been overlooked. Okay, stop there. Okay, chat didn't say anything. Okay, so I had a view of the water, a partial view of my neighbor's lawn, and the consoling proximity of millionaires, all for $80 a month. Across the Courtesy Bay, hold on, let me just start right here. $80 back then was probably a lot. let's say that. Like right now, I mean that's not nothing, but we're talking about 1920, guys. $80, oh my god, that's probably like what? Almost 1,000? I don't know math well. Sylvia, I have to start my animation. Oh no! Crazy K, what's up, Crazy K? How are you? He's alive. I am alive. Look at that. Also, story time. So join with me on this epic story of the Great Gatsby. Alright, where did I leave off? So, I had a view of the water, a partial view of my neighbor's lawn, and the consoling proximity of millionaires, all for $80 a month. Across the Courtesy Bay, the white palaces of fashionable East Egg glittered along the water, and the history of the summer really begins on the evening. I drove over there to have dinner with Tom Buckanas. I can never say that name, so if I say it wrong, I'm sorry. I can never say that name. Daisy was my second cousin Daisy was my second cousin once removed, and I'd known Tom in college. And just after the war, I spent 2 days with them in Chicago. Her husband, among various physical accomplishments, had been one of the most powerful ends that ever played football at New Haven. A national figure in a way, one of those men who reached such an acute, limited excellence at 21 that everything afterward savors of anti-climax. His family were enormously wealthy. Even in college, his freedom and money was a matter of for reproach. But now that he left Chicago and come east in a fashion that rather took your breath away. For instance, he brought down a stir of polo ponies like from Lake Forest. It was hard to realize that a man in my own generation was wealthy enough to do that. Why they came east, I don't know. They had spent a year in France for no particular reason. They drifted here and they were unrestless wherever people played polo were rich together. This was a prominent move, and said Daisy over the telephone. But I didn't believe it. I had no sight into Daisy's heart, but I felt that Tom would drift on forever, seeking a little wishful for the dramatic turbulence of some irrecoverable football game. And so it happened that a warm, windy evening I drove over to East Egg to see two old friends whom I scarcely knew at all. Their house was even more elaborate than I expected, a cheerful red and white Georgian colonial mansion overlooking the bay. The lawn started at the beach and ran towards the front door for a quarter of a mile, jumping over sundials and brick walks and burning gardens. Finally, when it reached the house, drifting up the side in bright vines as though from the monument of its run. The front was broken by a line of French windows, glowing now with the reflected gold, and wide open to the warm, windy afternoon, and Tom Buchanan, in riding clothes, was standing with his legs apart on the front porch. He had changed since his New Haven years, but now he was a sturdy, straw-haired man of 30 with a rather hard mouth and supercilious manner. Two shining, arrogant eyes had established dominance over his face, gave him the appearance of always leaning aggressively forward. Not even the effeminate swank of his riding clothes could hide the enormous power of the body. He seemed to fill those glistening boots until he strained the top lacing, and you could see a great pack of muscle shifting when his shoulder moved under his thin coat. It was a body capable of enormous leverage, a cruel body. His speaking voice, a gruff, husky tenor, added to the impression of fractures he conveyed. There was a touch of partial contempt in it, even towards people he liked, and there were men at New Haven who hated his guts. "Now, don't think my opinion on these matters is final," he seemed to say, "just because I'm stronger and more of a man than you are." We were in the same senior society, and while we were never intimate, I always had the impression that he approved of me, and wanted me to like him, with some harsh, deviant wishfulness of his own. Let's stop right there. Chad didn't say anything cool. Let's keep going. We talked for a few minutes on the sunny porch. "I've got a nice place here," he said, his eyes flashing restlessly. Turning me around by one arm, he moved a broad, flat hand over the front vista, including in its sweep a sunken Italian garden, half-acre of deep, pungent roses, and a sub-nose motor that bumped the title offshore. It belonged to Demain, the oil man. He turned me around again, politely and abruptly. "We'll go inside." We walked through halfway into the bright, rosy-colored space, bound into the house by French windows at either end. The windows were ajar and gleaming, while against the fresh grass outside the seemed to grow a little way into the house. A breeze blew through the room, blue curtains at one end and the other like pale flags, twisting them up toward the frosted wedding cake of the ceiling, and then ripped over the wine-colored rug, making a shadow on it as window does on the sea. The only completely stationary object in the room was an enormous couch on which two young men were boiled up as though upon an anchored balloon. They were both in white, and their dresses were rippling and fluttering as if they had just been blocked back and after a short flight around the house. I must have stood around for the moments listening to whip and snap of the curtains and the groan of pictures on the wall. And there was a boom as Tom Buchanan shut the front windows and the caught wind died out about the room, and the curtains and the rugs and the two young women ballooned slowly to the floor. The younger of the two was a stranger to me. She was extended full length at her end of the divan, completely motionless, and with her chin raised a little as if she was balancing something on which it was quite likely to fall. She saw me out of the corner of her eyes. She gave no hint of it. Indeed, I was surprised into murmuring apology for having disturbed her by coming in. The other girl, Daisy, made an attempt to rise. She leaned slightly forward with a conscious expression. Then she laughed, an absurd, charming little laugh, and I laughed too. and came forward into the room. Paralyzed with happiness. She laughed again, as if she was something very witty, and held my hand for a moment, looking up into my face, promising that there was no one in the world she wanted to see. There was a way she had. She hinted in a murmur that the surname of the balancing girl was Baker. I've heard it. It said that Daisy's murmur was only to make people lean toward her, an irrelevant criticism that made it no less charming. At any rate, Miss Baker's lips fluttered. She nodded at me almost imperceptibly, and then quickly tipped her head back again. The object which she was balancing had obviously tottered a little and given her something of a fright. Again, a sort of an apology arose to my lips, almost an exhibition of complete self-sufficiency, draws a stunned tribute from me. I looked back at my cousin, who began to ask me questions in her low, thrilling voice. It was the kind of voice that the ears flow up and down as if the speech is arrangement of notes that will never be played again. Her face was sad and lovely, with bright things in it, bright eyes and bright passionate mouth, but there was an excitement in her voice that men who had cared for her found difficult to forget. A singing compulsion, a whispered, listen, a promise that she had done gay, exciting things just a while since that they were gay, exciting things hovered in the next hour. I told her how I stopped off in Chicago for a day in my way east and had a dozen people had sent there through me. Do they miss me? She cried ecstatically. The whole town is desolate, and all the cars have the left rear wheel painted black as morning wreath, and then there was a silent, persistent wail at night along the night shore. How gorgeous! Let's go back, Tom, tomorrow. And then she added irrelevantly, you ought to see the baby. I like to. She's asleep. She's 2 years old. Haven't you seen her? Never. Well, you ought to see her. She's... Tom Buchanan, who has been hovering restlessly about the room, stopped and rested his hands on his shoulder. What are you doing, Nick? I'm a bondman. Who with? I told him. Never heard of them. He remarked it decisively. This annoyed me. You will, I answered shortly. You will say if in the East. Oh, I'll say in the East, don't you worry, he said, glancing at Daisy and then back at me, as if he were alert for something more. I'd be a goddamn fool to live anywhere else. At this point, Miss Baker said, absolutely, with such suddenness that I started. It was the first word she uttered since I came into the room. Evidently, it surprised her as much as it did for me, for she yawned with a series of rapid, deft movements, stood up in the room. I'm stiff, she complained. I've been lying on the sofa for as long as I can remember. Don't look at me, Daisy retorted. I've been trying to get you to the afternoon. No thanks, said Miss Baker to the 4 cocktails just in from the pantry. I'm absolutely in training. Her host looked at her incredulously. You are. He took down his drink as if it were a drop in the bottom of a glass. How you ever get anything done is beyond me. I looked at Miss Baker, wondering if she got done. I enjoyed looking at her. She was slender, small-breasted girl with an eccentric carriage which she accentuated by throwing her body backward at the shoulders like a young cadet. Her gray sun-straighted eyes looking back at me with polite recurple? That's a word I don't know. Curiosity of a wan, charming, descended face. It occurred to me now that I had seen her, or a picture of her, somewhere before. You live in Westegg, she remarked contemptuously. I know something there. I don't know a single... You must know Gatsby. Gatsby? Demanded Daisy. What Gatsby? Before I could reply that he was my neighbor, dinner was announced. Wedging his tense arm impetuously undermined Tom Buchanan, compelled me from the room as though he was moving a checker to another square. Slenderly, languidly, their hands set lightly on their hips, the 2 young women preceded us out onto a rosy-colored porch upon toward the sunset where 4 candles flickered on the table on a dimmish wind. Why candles? Objected Daisy, frowning. She snapped them out of her fingers. In 2 weeks it'll be the longest day in the year. She looked at us radiantly. Do you always watch for the longest day of the year? Do you miss it? I always watch for the longest day in the year, and then we miss it. We ought to plan something, yawned Miss Baker, sitting down at the tables as if she was getting into bed. All right, said Miss Daisy. What we'll do, she plained to me helplessly. What do you people plan? Before I could answer, her eyes fastened with an odd expression of her little finger. Look, she complained. I heard it. We all looked. The knuckle was black and blue. You did it, Tom. She accusingly, I know you didn't mean to do it, but that's what I get for marrying a brute of a man. A great, big, hulking physical specimen of a... I hate that word, hulking. Objected Tom that he did. And even kidding, hulkingly, insisted Daisy. Sometimes she and Miss Baker talked at once, abruptly, and with a bantering inconsequence that was never quite chatter. That was as cool as their white dresses and their personal eyes in the balance of their desire. They were here, and they accepted Tom and me, making only a polite, pleasant effort to entertain or to be entertained. A polite, pleasant effort to entertain or be entertained. They knew that presently dinner would be over in a little while after the evening too. They would be over and casually put away. It was sharply different from the West, where the evening was her worry. From phrase to phrase towards its closer into a continually disappointment, anticipation, or else in sheer nervous dread of the moment itself. You make me feel uncivilized, Daisy. I confess on my second glass of corky, a rather impressive claret. Can't you talk about crops or something? I meant nothing in particular but this remark, but it was taken up in an unexpected way. Civilization's going to be in pieces, broke out Tom violently. Chat, hold on. Crazy King, hello. I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled on your first night. This is Finance Freddy's. I actually worked in the office before you. I'm finished up my last week now, as a matter of fact. So I know it could be overwhelming, but I'm here to tell you there's nothing to worry about. You'll do fine. So let's just focus on phone guy, crazy case phone guy. What didn't you know? I didn't. That's a plot twist. All right. You can go ahead and write the full thing. I'll read that too. Oh, damn. Reading like I already read like a couple thousand words already. Jesus. For bookworms, this is probably nothing. But this is not something I do every day. I've gotten to be a terrible pessimist about things. Have you read The Rise of the Colored Empires by this man, Godard? Why, no, I answered, rather surprised by his tone. Well, it's a fine book, and everybody ought to read it. The idea is if we don't look at the white race, we'll be utterly submerged. It's a scientific stuff. It's all been proven. Tom's getting very profound, and said Daisy with an expression of unthoughtful sadness. He reads deep books with long words in them, but what was the word she got cut off. Well, those books are all scientific, insisted Tom, glancing at her impatiently. This fellow has worked out the whole thing. It's up to us, who are the dominant race, to watch out, or these other races will have control of things. We got to beat them down, whispered Daisy, winking ferociously toward the fervent sun. You'll have to live in California, began Miss Baker, but Tom interrupted by shifting heavily in his chair. This idea is that we're Nordics. Well, let me pause. Did you say anything? Nope, he didn't type anything. And you are blank. After an infinitesimal hesitation, he has included Daisy with a slight nod, and she winked at me again. And we've produced all the things that go to make civilization, science and art and all of that. Do you see? There was something pathetic in his concentration, as if his compliancy, most acute then of old, was not enough to him anymore. When almost immediately the telephone rang inside and the butler left the porch, Daisy seized upon the momentary interruption to lead toward him. I'll tell you a family secret, she whispered, enthusiastic. It's about the butler's nose. Do you want to hear about the butler's nose? That's why I came over tonight. Well, the silver polisher for some people in New York that had a silver service for 200 people. He had to polish it from morning till night until it finally began to affect his nose. Things went from bad to worse, suggested Miss Baker. Yes, things went from bad to worse until he finally gave up his passion. For a moment the last sunshine fell with romantic affection upon her glowing face. Her voice compelled me forward breathlessly as I listened. Then the glow faded, each light deserting with her lingering regret, like having children, leaving them on a pleasant street at dusk. Let's see. Alright, hold on, let me read your comment. So he says, I finally got the animation with the flag done. Nice, nice. Crazy Casey Gaming says, okay, let's see. First thing, there's an introduction greeting from the company that I'm supposed to read. It's kind of a legal thing, you know. We know how it goes. Oh boy, Fazbear Entertainment. Oh god. Oh no. What do they gotta say? Where did I leap off? The butler came back and murmured something close to Tom's ear, whereupon Tom frowned, pushed back his chair, and without a word went inside. As if his absence quickened something within her, Daisy leaned forward again, her voice glowing and singing, "I'd love to see you at my table, Nick. You remind me of a rose, an absolute rose, doesn't he?" She turned to Miss Baker for conversation. An absolute rose? This was untrue. I'm not even faintly like a rose. She was only extemporizing, but a stirring warmth followed from her, as if her heart was trying to come out to you, concealed in one of those breathless, thrilling words. Then suddenly she threw her napkin on the table and excused herself and went into the house. Miss Baker and I exchanged a short glance of consciousness devoid of meaning. I was about to speak when she sat up abruptly and said, "Shh," in a warning voice, and a subdued, impassioned murmur was audible in the room beyond, and Miss Baker leaned forward, unashamed, trying to hear. The murmur trembled on the verge of coherence and sank down, nodded excitedly, and then ceased altogether. "This Mr. Gatsby you spoke of is my neighbor," I said. "Don't talk, I want to hear what happens." "Is something happening?" I inquired, innocently. "You mean to say you don't know?" Miss Baker, honestly surprised. "I thought everybody knew." "I don't." "Why," she said hesitantly, "Tom's got some woman in New York." "Got some woman?" I repeated blankly. Miss Baker nodded. "She might have the decency not to telephone him at the dinner time, don't you think?" Almost before I had grasped her meaning, there was the flutter of a dress and the cruncher of leather boots, and Tom and Daisy were back at the table. "It couldn't be helped," cried Daisy with tense gaiety. She sat down, glanced searching at Miss Baker, and then at me. Continued, "I looked outdoors for a minute, and it's very romantic outdoors. There's a bird on the lawn, and I think there must be a night gale come over in the courtyard. Something Win-ups. Sorry, crazy, I didn't see that. Win-ups where fantasy fun come to life. Fazbear Entertainment. Upon discovering that damage or death has occurred, a missing person report will be filed within 90 days as soon as property and the carpets have been replaced." Very nice. Alright. Courtyard or White Star Lane. He's singing away. Her voice sang, "It's romantic, isn't it, Tom?" "Very romantic." "Then miserably to me. If it's light, even after dinner, I want to take you down to the stables." The telephone rang inside, startling, and as Daisy shook her head decisively at Tom, the subject of the stables, in fact, all subjects, vanished into air. Among the broken fragments of the last 5 minutes at table, I remember the candles being lit again. Pointlessly, and I was conscious of wanting to look squarely at every one, and yet to avoid all eyes. I couldn't guess what Daisy and Tom were thinking about. I doubt even Miss Baker, who seemed to have mastered a certain to put this to fits. Oh my god, these tongue twisters, dude. To put this fist guest shrill metallic urgency out of my mind. To a certain temperament, the situation might have seemed intriguing. My own instinct was to telephone immediately for the police. The horses, needed to say, were not mentioned. Tom and Miss Baker were several feet of twilight between them, strolled back into the library, as if to Virgil, beside a perfectly tangible body. While trying to look pleasantly interested and a little deaf, I followed Daisy around a chain of connecting verandas to the porch in front. In its deep gloom, we sat down by side on a wicker set. Daisy looked her face in her hands, as if feeling its lovely shape, and her eyes moved gradually onto the velvet dusk. I saw that turbulent emotions possessed her, so I asked what I thought would be some sedative questions and her little girl. See, blah blah blah. Now that blah blah blah. Now that might sound bad, I know, but there's really nothing to worry about. The animations characters here can get a little bit risky, trisky. I forgot what he said. No, if I were forced to sing those same stupid songs for 20 years and I never got a bath, I'd probably be irritable at night too. So remember, The characters hold a special place in the hearts of children when you show them a little respect. Right? Okay. Don't don't ask me why. No. Well, I'm gonna say anyway because 2014 was an interesting year. It was an interesting year for everybody. If you remember it, you remember it. Oh, guys, chapter 1's almost over. I just want to tell you that. We don't even know each other very well, Nick. She said suddenly. Even if we are cousins. Wait. I'll give you a second. I'll give you a break for a second. Okay. Thank you. I actually appreciate that. By the way, I think you're the only one here. If you check my channel description, I put you on my shoutouts. So there you go. It's not my description. It's my channel subscription page. I have my mods there. I have people who I'm subscribed to, and I have people who I'm shouting out. So shout out to you, Crazy K Gaming. I don't know if you know that, but I'm telling you now. We don't know each other very well, Nick, she said suddenly. Even if we are cousins, you didn't come to my wedding. I wasn't back from the war. That's true. She hesitated. Well, I've had a very bad time. Nick and I am pretty clinical about everything. Evidently, she had a reason to be. I waited, but she didn't say any more. And after a moment, I realized that rather feebly to the subject of her daughter. I suppose she talks and eats and everything. Oh, yes. She looked at me absently. Listen, Nick. Let me tell you what I said when she was born. Would you like to hear? Crazy K says, sweet, I haven't uploaded in a year. Nice. Fantastic. Well, there you go. There's your shout out. I think you're a cool cat, so that's why I put you there. I could only pick 10 people. So I was like, Crazy K's a cool cat. There we go. We got more. Crazy K says, so, just be aware, the characters do tend to wander a bit. They're left in some kind of free roaming mode at night. Something about their system locking up. I don't remember this word for word, but if you do type it, I think I can do it. Something about they used to be allowed to walk around during the day too, but then there was the bite of 87. Yeah, it's amazing that the human body can survive without the frontal lobe or something. Where was I? Very much. I'll show you how I've gotten to feel about things. Well, she was less than an hour old, and Tom was God knows where. I woke up out of the ether. Was an utterly abandoned feeling, and asked the nurse right away if it was a boy or a girl. She told me it was a girl, so I turned my head away and wept. All right, I said. I'm glad it's a girl. I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world. A beautiful little fool. You see, I think everything's terrible anyhow, she went on in a convinced way. Everybody thinks so. The most advanced people, and I know. I've been everywhere and seen everything and done everything. Her eyes flashed around in a defiant way, rather like Tom's. She laughed with thrilling scorn. Sophisticated? God, I'm sophisticated. The instant her voice broke off, seasoned to compel my attention. Crazy K says, living without the frontal lobe. Yeah, living without the frontal lobe. That's a major yikes. That is a major yikes. My belief, I felt the basic insecurity of what she had said. It made me uneasy, as though the whole evening had been a trick of some sort to extract a contributory emotion from me. I waited, and sure enough, in a moment she looked at me with an absolute smirk on her lovely face, as if she asserted her membership on a distinguished secret society to which she and Tom belonged. Inside, the crimson room bloomed with light. Tom and Miss Baker sat at either end of the long couch, and she read it along to him from the Saturday Evening Post. The words murmurous and unafflicted, running together in a soothing tune. The lamplight bright on his boots and dull on the autumn leaf yellow of her hair glinted along the paper as she turned a page with a flutter of slender muscles in her arms. Crazy says, all right, I'll listen for a sec. All right. Cool. All right. Save for a bit. Then you actually, the chapter's almost over too. I think it might take me maybe 5 more minutes. Then chapter 1 will be done. Then I'm gonna end it. I'm not doing chapter 2. This is good for today. When he came and she held us for silent for a moment with a lifted hand. To be continued, she said, tossing the magazine on the table. In our very next issue. Her body asserted itself with a restless movement of her knee, and she stood up. 10 o'clock, she remarked, apparently finding the time on the ceiling. Time's for the good girl to go to bed. Jordan's going to play in the tournament tomorrow, explained Daisy, over at Westchester. Oh, you're Jordan Baker? I knew why her face was familiar. Its pleasing conceptuous expression had looked out at me from many rotograph pictures of the sporting life in Asheville and Hot Springs and Palm Beach. I had heard some of the stories of her too, a critical, unpleasant story actually, but I forgot how long ago it was. Good night, she said softly. Wake me up, won't you? If you'll get up, I will. Good night, Mr. Carraway. See you and all. Of course I will, confirmed Daisy. In effect, I think I'll arrange a marriage. Come over often. Nick and I'll sort of fling, together. You know, lock it up in an accidental linen closet and push you onto the seaboat and all sort of thing. Rated R stuff, guys. I'm not reading that. Good night, called Miss Baker from the stairs. I haven't heard a word. She's a nice girl, said Tom afterward. They ought to let her run around the country this way. Hold on to, inquired Daisy coldly. Whoa, her family. Her family is one aunt, about 1,000 years old. Besides, Nick's going to look after her, aren't you, Nick? She's going to spend lots of weekends out here this summer. I think the home influence will be very good for her. Daisy and Tom looked at each other for a moment in silence. Is she from New York? I asked quickly. From Louisville? Our white girlhood was passed together out there. Our beautiful white blank. Did you give Nick a little heart-to-heart talk on the veranda? Demanded Tom suddenly. Crazy says, before you get stuffed into oh God. Oh no. Crazy says, now concerning your safety, the only real risk to you as a night watchman, as here, if any, in the fact that these characters, if they happen, doesn't say person, but it doesn't offend. The only real risk to you as a night guard. No, I don't remember being like that. That doesn't sound right. The first part, until you said night watchman, then it doesn't feel right. Everything else doesn't sound like it wasn't. I don't know. If it's from memory, if this is all from memory, good stuff. I thought you were like copying and pasting. This is good stuff. I'm reading from a book, so kind of. Where did I leave off? Did I? She looked at me. I can't seem to remember, but I think we talked about the Nordic race. Yes, I'm sure we did. It sort of crept up on us. First thing you know, don't believe anything you hear, Nick. He advised me. I said lightly that I had heard nothing at all, and a few minutes later I got up to go home. They came to the door with me and stood side by side in a cheerful square of light. As I stared at my motor, Daisy, perpetuously, called, Wait! I forgot to ask you something, and it's important. We heard you were engaged to a girl out west? That's right, corroborated Tom kindly. We heard that you were engaged. It's little. I'm too poor. But we heard it, insisted Daisy, surprising me by opening up again in a flower-like way. We heard it from 3 people, so it must be true. Of course I knew that they were referring to, but I wasn't even vaguely engaged. The fact that gossip had published the banns was one of the reasons I had to come east. You can't stop going with the old friend on account of rumors, and on the other hand, I had no intention of being rumored into marriage. Their interest rather touched me and made them less remotely rich. Nevertheless, I was confused and a little disgusted as I drove away. It seemed to me that the thing for Daisy to do was rush out of the house, child in arms, but apparently there was no such intentions in her head. As for Tom, the fact that he had some woman in New York was really less surprising than he had been depressed by a book. Something was making him nibble at the edge of stale ideas as his sturdy physical egotism no longer nourished his perpetual heart. Crazy says, they'll most likely see you as a metal endoskeleton out of its costume. Yeah. If you play dead, there's no way to get out of that. They got you cornered. Dude, the first FNAF is a classic. Always will be. I don't know about the books and I don't know about that. I don't know. I think after FNAF 4, that's when things start going bad. This is my opinion. I wasn't a really big fan of FNAF 3. FNAF 2 is my favorite. I like that one. Where was I at? Alrighty, it was deep summer on Roadhouse roofs, and in front of wasted garages where new red gas pumps sat out in pools of light. When I reached my estate at West Egg, I ran the car under its shed and sat for a while on an abandoned gas roller in the yard. The wind had blown off, leaving a bright night sound and wings beating in the trees in the persistent organ, sound as the full blows of the earth blew the frogs full of life. The silhouette of a moving cat watched river across the moonlight, and turning my head to watch if I saw that alone, I was not alone. 50 feet away, a figure had emerged from the shadow of my neighbor's mansion, and was standing with his hands in the pockets regarding the silver pepper of the stars. Something in his leisure movements and his secure position of his feet upon the lawn suggested that it was Mr. Gatsby himself, coming out to determine what share was his of the local heavens. Crazy says, now, that would be so bad if the suits themselves weren't filled with cross beams, wires, and animatronic devices, especially around it. Especially, oh, damn. I'm glad you're here, because I'm forgetting the other parts. Okay. That suggested that was Mr. Gatsby himself, come out to determine what share was his of our local heavens. I decided to call him. Miss Baker had mentioned him at dinner, and that would do for an introduction. But I didn't call him for that, giving him sudden invitation, that he was content to be alone. He stretched out his arms toward the dark water in a curious way, and far as I was from him, I soared and distinguished nothing except a single green light, a minute and far away. That must have been the end of a dock. When I looked more for Gatsby, he had vanished, and I was alone again in the unquiet darkness. And that is the end of chapter 1, guys. Woo! That is the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2 begins right here. I'm not gonna do chapter 2 because believe it or not, that there was so many tongue twisters in that my head's gonna explode. So many weird words I learned probably like 30 new words today from a half an hour of reading. I've never seen these words. I mean, I probably heard them before, but I've never read them myself. Yes, sir. So, Crazy, since you're the only one here, did you like story time? This is my first time doing Danny story time. I like telling stories, and I thought, hey, what if I did an actual story? What if I actually read a story? Would you be interested in listening to chapter 2? Or would you say this was just a one-time banger thing? I want to hear your thoughts. But after this, after I hear whatever you have to say, then I'm going to go. Am I going to play a game? Am I going to stream? I don't know. If you have suggestions, suggestive. That doesn't mean I'm going to do it, but just suggest it and I'll think about it. But I want to hear your comments. But yeah, I learned a lot of words today. I don't even remember them. All I know is that these words were at least 15 characters long, 15 letter words. These are big boy words. Like absolutely, like these are probably words that you can hear them fine, but when you look at these words, they're like, oh my god, who decided to make these words? Like that's what I honestly have questions about. Who decided to make these 15 character words that look like they're a different language, but they're not? Well, I'm glad chapter 1's over. Crazy K says, yeah, I enjoyed story time, but phone call isn't over yet. Alright. Crazy K says, yeah, they don't tell you these things when you sign up, but hey, first day should be a breeze. I'll chat with you tomorrow. Then the phone goes off. J Alexis, I'm back. What's up, Alexis? You missed story time with Danny because chapter 1's over. I mean, do you guys want me? I mean, hold on. Let me skim through because if this is a lot of pages, let me. If chapter 2 is short, then I might do it. It depends. What do you guys want? Do you guys want me to do chapter 2 now? But I'm gonna look at when does chapter 2 end. Chapter 2's over here. Jesus. Oh man, I mean, I could do one more, time wise, and I could do one more. I could do that. I could do that. I mean, that's a far away, but I can do that. Crazy says, check those cameras. Remember to close the doors only if absolutely necessary. Gotta conserve power. All right. Good night, Danny the Great. Thank you, Crazy. Alexis has the sad face. Oh no, you do you. Make sure to check on Foxy. Yeah, always check on Foxy. Crazy says, you do you. What do you think, Alexis? You want to hear story? I can keep it going. I'm not gonna do chapter 3. But I'm thinking, should I do chapter 2 or should I just call it quits right now? So many words. So many. I read at least 10,000 words in half an hour. Fantastic. Wonderful. Then close it. Alright. Alright, we're done for tonight. I will see you guys whenever. Okay. Come on. Close the book. You can't. Close the door. What door? Wait, my doors are closed. Wait, what do you mean? Close the door? What are you talking about? Danny closed the door. What are you talking about? What door? I'm so confused. Close the door? What? Crazy K. I'm confused. Yeah, I could probably do chapter 2, but no. No. Alright, I'm gonna go. Okay, so pleasure seeing you, Crazy, Alexis. Okay, bye. Bye. Danny, story time with Danny. Okay, bye. Bye.